Welcome to the I Hate Critics Movie Review Podcast. I'm professional film critic Sean Patrick. With me is Jeff.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
And Jeff, when is your Maxine print coming out? Because everybody's going to want this.
Well, I had a couple commissions that I absolutely had to do so I could pay my bills. But I'm so close to it. I will post it as soon as it's up on our page, on my Instagram, which is Jeff Lasseter Pop Cult, and everywhere. I'm so happy with like the Maxine part of it that it's the wallpaper on my phone.
It's an incredible piece. Having seen just a preview of it, I think it's incredible and certainly something I want to have on my wall. So as soon as you're done, you gotta let me know.
I will definitely be putting it on TeePublic too, because I want to wear it on a t-shirt. And I'm thinking, normally I do my, $20 prints, $25 prints. Thinking I might put it up for a print on demand 18 by 24 for like $40.
Nice.
We'll see.
We'll see. Well, hopefully that'll be up soon. Of course, Maxine didn't blow away the box office this weekend, but it wasn't meant to. $6.705 million, which is fine. I don't know what the budget for Maxine was, but it really doesn't matter. What matters is that this is an incredible movie that's going to have incredible legs, and if we still had a secondary rental market in this country, like it would absolutely clean up there as well. And of course, what the inevitable DVD release is going to be incredible as well, because I'm going to have to own this on physical media.
Oh, I own the other two, and it's getting pride of place in my collection.
Like, I trust A24, more than I trust other companies, but at the same time, with this move more and more towards digital, you never know. One day A24 gets into a place where like, well, we're ready to move on, and they sell to like one of the bigger companies. Suddenly they pull everything off the market, and what do? What do you got? You're left with nothing. You're left with no way to watch, this movie or that movie. I mean, there are plenty. I know there are millions and millions and millions of movies that are available, but there are also millions of movies right now that are almost essentially lost media just because you can't go and find them. Like we've run into this a few times on the 94 podcast where we go to watch one of these movies and it's just no longer available.
Well, we've done it with Classic before.
Yeah.
I suggested that we do the movie Just Before Dawn a couple weeks ago, and for In a Violent Nature as our classic. And I have it on physical media, but it's unavailable to stream right now, and it's actually pretty solid. So now that you live closer, maybe I'll lend it to you and we can do it.
That's a good idea. I'm getting into a big physical media thing. I'm working on again another failed project, probably to gather the best picture winners on Blu-ray, and just for me. No, I mean I may write about it, hopefully eventually, but yeah, that's something I'm doing because I want to have physical copies of these. I don't trust these companies with people like David Zaslav in charge of these companies with the ability to just sort of pull anything off of their streaming service at any moment and take it completely out of circulation at any moment. You can't trust these people. You can't trust these Wall Street guys because they're not interested in the quality of the movie. They're not interested in people being interested in seeing their movies. I don't know. I don't quite get it. Sell it to somebody else who does want to display it or show it. Maybe. I don't understand why you have assets that you're not going to use, but they have millions of assets that they are currently not using.
And I get the, like Disney used to put stuff in the vault. You couldn't buy it for several years.
Yeah.
I get that kind of thinking. But if you've got a digital platform like Max or, whatever, why not stream it? Why not throw it up there and see if you get, like that Batgirl debacle last year could have completely, that I would have signed up for Max to watch that at least for, a couple months, but
right. If they'd have turned around and said, okay, we're not going to necessarily shelve it. We don't know what we're going to do with it. And then said, okay, well, we're going to put it out on this date. it would have become the number one streaming movie for that, weekend. And it would have been the talk of the internet for that entire weekend. And they would have made however much money you can make from, your subscriptions. Subscription services in the first place it's kind of a dumb plan for how to use your movies when you could be putting, like, Tubi makes sense to me. Tubi, you put it on Tubi, they sell commercials in between it. It makes sense. That's a business model that is constantly making money. There's a reason why Tubi is successful, even without having, major name movies that people actually want to watch, because you can watch anything on Tubi for free. You just have to suffer through their terrible commercials. But that's how Tubi makes their money. So it makes sense.
One thing that also pissed me off is I used to, Cinema Now used to be Best Buy's streaming service. And it was one of the very first. It was, and it was, you would buy a movie, and then if you bought it at Best Buy, they always had a Cinema Now code that you could do. And I probably had 40 movies on there. And then they're like, oh, it's just going away. Sorry. You bought all these movies, and you could buy movies from it too. And I bought, several, and it's just gone.
This happened to me. I bought movies on Amazon Prime, right? I bought a couple of movies on Amazon Prime, and then the companies that own those movies pulled them off of Prime, and suddenly I don't own them anymore. And I'm like, how do I not own them anymore? What are you talking about? Well, you needed to download them and keep them on a flash drive or whatever. And I'm like, I did? What?
And they do not make that simple.
No, they don't. Because I didn't even know I didn't know the first thing about doing that. And I know there's somebody out there going, oh, it's real easy. Fuck you. Fuck you, it is. Fuck you and your external hard drive. I don't have
come to
one.
my fucking house and do it for me. Okay?
I thought I just bought it and it stayed on Amazon and I could just watch it whenever I went into my Amazon account.
Yeah.
But it didn't even occur to me when I bought them. They're like, what if I don't want to have an Amazon Prime account anymore? Do I still own those movies?
And you know what? That reminds me, I got to go look and see if I still have Night of the Virgin.
Fantastic movie.
Yeah, it really is. It just came up in my Facebook memories that you made me watch it like 7 years ago yesterday.
I've tried to make a lot of people watch that movie, but nobody will.
I had to buy it.
The problem is they have to they read my review first, and they're like, I'm not seeing that. It's like, it's a really positive review. What are you talking about? I mentioned Maxine's box office before, and the box office is back thanks to Inside Out 2 and now Despicable Me 4, which did $75 million over the weekend. A huge opening for that film.
Are movies back?
I think movies are back. I don't know. Maybe movie theaters aren't dying. Maybe just a lot of bros were really upset about Furiosa. I don't know. I have no idea, but yeah, suddenly all those people who are saying that theatrical is dead are very, very quiet now, and it's weird how that works. Quiet Place made another $20 million, which is doing quite well. It's gonna cross $100 million this weekend for sure. Bad Boys is probably gonna cross $200 million before it finishes. And Costner made another $5 million on his movie that everybody said is dead in the water. So yeah, people are still going to the movies, guys. They were never not going to the movies. You just have to give them movies that they can take their kids to, or just movies that people want to see. Like,
so what's funny is we're going to talk about Kinds of Kindness, and I had to leave it last night because I didn't realize it was 3 hours long, and had to leave and went back today to watch the last half of it, or the last third of it. And I went in the theater. It was like I had a part that I had seen, and I still had probably about another 20 minutes left. So I'm like, I'll go grab a soda and go to the bathroom. And I popped into Maxine just for, like 2 minutes. And I looked back, and there were like 50 people in the theater at noon.
Wow.
Today. And I know it's discount day at the
Right.
Cinemark theaters, but still, I mean, you could have knocked me over with a feather at that point, seeing that many people in Maxine.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Unexpected, yeah, for a Tuesday afternoon.
yeah. But it was packed. The whole theater was packed. And I mean, it was, excuse me, kids everywhere, which, ugh.
Mm-hmm.
But the Despicable Me 4, there were just people streaming into the IMAX showing
Yeah.
of that. So
Mm-hmm.
glad I didn't see that.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't see kids movies anymore, honestly. I don't miss it. Aside from Inside Out,
Plus,
too, but I had to see that one just because I like the original so much.
yeah, plus our IMAX theater seating sucks. So.
Oh, it does, yeah. I wish they could change that, but they can't.
You know.
Sorry, that's a very local observation, nevertheless. Our first movie, of course, is Maxine. Mia Goth and, of course, Ty West back together. The third film in this trilogy that began with X, continued with Pearl, and now Maxine, set in Los Angeles in the mid-1980s. The same character as in X is now in Hollywood. She's becoming a movie star. She's actually got herself a role in a horror movie. This is an incredibly clever film and incredibly brilliant, just like the first two movies. This is actually just a near perfect carry on of that story from X through Pearl, and now here about this story about people who will do anything to be famous. But in the case of Maxine, she's going to be famous in her own way, and that's really separates this character so much from other kinds of horror movie characters. Bob's joining us for this one, and Bob, you just saw Maxine today. Why don't you give us your impression?
My immediate reaction is just that Mia Goth is like one of the best actresses out there right now. It's insane that she's not more popular. At the same time, I love her in movies like this. I don't know that I want to see her in Oppenheimer or anything, but that was the first thing that jumped off. And then the way that Ty West just controlled all three of these movies, but you know, we just saw Maxine, the way he controlled every second of it. So, you know, all the camp was controlled, all the horror, everything was just, at no point did I feel like he was overwhelmed as a director at all, this whole series for that matter. But, you know, there's only a handful of directors that really do that well, or have that kind of power. And I suppose A24 plays a role in giving him that.
Mm-hmm.
But he definitely has earned it. And I this is so much fun. All three of them were so much fun. Kevin Bacon's hilarious. I mean, everybody's over the top in the right way. I don't know. It was a fantastic third film of the trilogy.
Yeah, I love this movie a lot. I love there's an actually, like, even as this is a period piece set in the 1980s, there's a meta quality because there's that whole story going around about Mia Goth being horrible on set, and she hurt an extra in the scene where she crushed that guy's balls, and the fucking phenomenal scene. But it turns out that that's actually the arc of the character. Like, the whole thing is about, like, there's literally a reference to Betty Davis saying, if you're not a monster, you're not a star. And it's like, that's just exactly what, like, they played us all when it came to that story. And I dug that so much, on top of just everything else. This movie carries like a modern day meta quality on top of that. Jeff, what did you think?
I thought it was incredible. I mean, I just sat there the whole time going, this is exactly what I need and what I want from the third movie in this trilogy. I want, like, I want more of this character. Right. She just leaps off the screen every time she comes on it and doesn't let go of you at all. I mean, even after, you know, like, it's a week after I've seen the movie, and I wanted to see it again before we talked about it, but didn't get the chance. It's just, everybody in it. Like, Elizabeth Debicki is great.
Oh yeah.
Simon Prast. Oh my God. He is playing like Paul Lynde in some sort of devil movie. I mean, just the gayest character in this movie. There's like 3 or 4 gay characters, and he's just up there talking about the apocalypse. And I laughed during that part just so hard because I was like, he's channeling like Paul Lynde and Charles Nelson Riley and all the, the 80s gay characters who weren't really gay, or who were but weren't.
Right.
And it's that kind of lent a subtext to me because it was almost kind of like he was sublimating his like theatricality and gayness by becoming a preacher and teaching his daughter how to be herself and who she is when he couldn't be.
It's so, all these touches and all these choices that Ty West and Mia Goth have made, and the way that they collaborated to create this character and create Pearl as well, and how those characters mirror each other. It's like we were saying before, Bob, about the level of control that Ty West has taken here. He's never shown this to me previously in his career.
No.
I mean, I've liked other things that he did, but other things that he did seem more lethargic and a little bit less focused. And these 3 films have just such control. It's such a masterful thing. It is Ari Aster levels of good.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I always kind of thought he was Ari Aster light. I mean, I know he kind of came out before him, but I hadn't seen his movies until was it House of the Devil or whatever that we did as a classic.
Mm-hmm.
That's the poor man's Hereditary in a lot of ways. Granted, Hereditary came out later. It's good. I like it. But Ari Aster did it better. These 3 movies are, you can put his name up there with Robert Eggers and Ari Aster and all those A24 guys. He belongs right there with them. And it just, like, in order for me to see this movie, I had to go see The Quiet Place with my wife. That was the rule. I wasn't allowed to go see the movies I want to see, because we always watch what I want. And The Quiet Place is good. There's nothing wrong with The Quiet Place. But you can definitely tell when an artist is controlling and writing and directing, and it's his movie versus a studio doing it. Even when the studio does it well, you could still tell the difference. And this is just light years above most studio movies. And A24 gets a lot of that credit. Ty West probably had a lot of talent that wasn't getting out there the way it should. And this is the kind of movie I need. After a while, you just get bored of all the, like I said, even the good studio stuff. It's still kind of the repetitive bullshit that's out there. It's stuff like this that gets me motivated again.
Absolutely. I feel the same way. And I want to talk about the music now. And I mean, these are some of the greatest needle drops ever. I've been obsessed with 80s music lately, and just that first moment when you kick in with ZZ Top, and then they've got that remix of Self Control by Laura Branigan. Like, this is absolutely incredible. The choices that it plays so perfectly. And it's not even like a typical Greek chorus necessarily. He's not trying to, like, oh, this song comments on what's happening in the movie. It's not like Forrest Gump, which is like, we're going to Vietnam, we got to play Fortunate Son. He's running, you got to play Running on Empty, that kind of bullshit. None of that is going on here. The music is just, it's of the moment, and it just, the sound of it and maybe kind of lyrically match what is happening without like smacking you across the face with it.
Oh, yeah, this was like an 80s music video, and I mean that in the best way. And all of the different music in it really lent that feel. From the trailer, I'm like, oh, okay, they've got some great music. And the fact that they use the same movie music in the trailer was great to me, because a lot of times they'll just, they'll put a trailer with just some random song that doesn't have anything to do with the movie. And this one, all the best parts of the trailer, as far as the music goes, were in this. And it was like, okay, this is what I wanted. This is exactly what I wanted.
What do you think, Bob?
Yeah, it made me. It was. I don't know why I am surprised that they got the songs they got, and they had the act. Michelle Monaghan and whoever the other guy was. I
Bobby
keep forgetting
Cannavale.
his name. Yeah, but I mean, those people, they both pop up in movies all the time.
Yeah.
The fact that, I mean, the cast, the music, I don't know why I'm shocked that they're in this movie, but the first two are so good. I get it. It's and A24 is allowing him the expense to put the right songs with what's going on, and that stuff matters. Even the product placement was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if it was truly product placement or they just wanted 80s looking logos, but it was just so fun. It was nostalgic, and it was just perfect for what they were trying to do.
Great look. I mean, the cinematography is beautiful. The use of neon is it's so hard to nail that. To both look like it's the 80s, but not go so far that it trips over into like too much, like it's a parody of the 80s, like something like I don't know, like a movie like Take Me Home Tonight with Topher Grace, like trips over that line and goes into too much neon. Whereas this, you've got just the right, like the grunge of Los Angeles in the 80s. That's, drug induced and crime ridden, and but also just plenty of neon to make sure this is the 1980s.
Did you guys ever see the movie Vice Squad?
It doesn't sound familiar.
It's a Gary Sherman movie. Well, no, this is about a sex worker whose friend gets murdered by Wings Hauser, played by Susan Hubley, and it's kind of one of those sleaze classics that was always on HBO late at night. And it took me a minute after, so I went home and I was like, what does this movie remind me of as far as, the look and the feel of it? And it really, really, really was Vice, down to the point where Halsey's character looked like she was modeled after Susan Hubley's character in Vice Squad. The same kind of short hair and puffy fur coat and all that. And that aesthetic that, Vice Squad. And did you guys ever see the movie Angel?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
We talked about Angel on the show. Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of aesthetic. And that was actually made in the 80s. And this one is made of the 80s and just really captured it to me. Even like the makeup, nothing was over the top.
Yeah.
It was kind of gritty and kind of realistic. Her wearing that green jacket throughout the movie, you would think that if they were doing an 80s movie, it would have been, like big shoulder pads and all that. And it really wasn't. It was more grounded. And I really liked that about it.
I also loved the movie within the movie. That was a very clever movie within the movie. And you've got Lily Collins playing the original star of that movie, and the way she dies horribly. And but it's like that is the level for this character, for Maxine. Like, if she's going to make it in movies, it's going to be a horror sequel that's kind of a cult classic, underground kind of thing.
Yeah.
I had there's somebody on social media that was a big fan of all three of these movies, and he compared it. He goes, Maxine with Body Double meets Summer of Sam.
I saw that too.
That's quite good. I love Summer of Sam. It's one of the most underrated movies of all time. I was actually, one of the things I compared it to in my review was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because it takes the what they did with the Manson family in that film. It takes that and does that a similar thing with the Night Stalker, using that Night Stalker murders as a way of kind of distracting over here to this sort of rewriting of history, which I thought was a very clever, another piece of clever writing and an approach to telling the story.
I mean, I do think it's fair to, throw Tarantino's name in there with kind of how good he did with these three movies. Back to Control. Nobody controls a movie like Tarantino does, and that's what all three of these were. And similar to when I saw Once Upon a Time in the West. It was what I needed at that moment to start wanting to watch movies again. And this just felt good. It felt right. And it was, I don't know, I was so happy to get to see it and not have to miss this episode.
I gotta say, I've got to kick off the Kevin Bacon Oscar push. I know this is not the kind of role that gets Academy Awards, but this deserved an Academy Award. He is so sleazy. I felt like I could smell him.
No, that was me. We were sitting next to each other in the theater.
But to your point, though, that they give an award out for the most acting all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The most acting needed to be in this movie. I mean, that's kind of what that role needed, and it was perfect for this. It doesn't necessarily work it's not as necessary in A Few Good Men or whatever. It's perfect for this movie.
You know what it is? It's a better version of what Woody Harrelson was doing in No Country for Old Men. That was good work too, but I'm saying this is a very similar character, and I think it's just done better here.
Well, they're both tones are different. I don't think you could put Kevin Bacon in No Country for Old Men and it would work, and vice versa. I think it needs to be in this movie, but I get what you're saying. I mean, but Mia Goth, I wish she should have won for Pearl. I
agree.
Start there,
yeah.
But she pops off the screen. She is so recognizable. There's just no reason why she can't, which again, I don't necessarily want her to be a bigger star because I like her in movies like this, in smaller movies, but God, she's so good.
Yeah, when you take about these three movies and you throw in Infinity Pool on top of it, that's the last four things she did. That's incredible. Mm-hmm. That's absolutely incredible.
Well, and she was in Suspiria too.
Right.
I would love for her to just continue to do weird, quirky horror or horror adjacent movies. Like more working with Ty West, more working with Cronenberg. Let's like put her in an Ari Aster movie. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, she could have stepped into any role in any of his movies.
Right.
And completely fit in. I think she's not only an amazing actor, but I think she's a great writer and producer. And I think that she, in order to get the kind of movies that she's going to get an Oscar for, because she's going to get an Oscar someday, I think it should have been for Pearl, but in order to do something like that, she's going to have to write her own path, because everybody, I don't think people that don't do this kind of movie would really know what to do with her.
Right. Yeah. It reminds me of when I really became a fan of Florence Pugh, and she did go on to become a big star, but those first three movies I saw her in, Little Women and the wrestling movie and Midsummer, I know she'd done other things, but that year was pretty amazing for me as a viewer with her. It was kind of like that. And I want her to have success, but at the same time, selfishly, I want to see her in this. And she could, you're right. I know she's talented enough to do a Christopher Nolan movie or whatever, but I think you're right. They wouldn't be good enough to handle her, if that makes sense, or they wouldn't use her properly.
Certainly, yeah.
She could have
keep her out of the Marvel
played the
universe.
Florence Pugh part in Oppenheimer.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And luckily, this movie only made $6.7 million over the weekend, so she can keep making these movies.
I'm going to tell you this. It may not have done gangbusters, but every single person I follow in the horror community is raving about it. I posted my the sketch I sent you guys for the bigger piece that I'm working on, and like Fangoria picked it up and reposted. It's like, everybody loves this movie who sees it, and I want more people to see it so that we get more stuff from them. I think we will. I don't think box office is the biggest.
No.
The biggest thing in Ty West and Mia Goth's.
No, certainly not for them. But I was I'm merely speaking of other people perceiving her as a massive star that they want to put in major blockbusters.
No, I get that. I think they do this kind of stuff because, I mean, Pearl was just an idea they had in quarantine, and it was just like, oh, well, let's write a backstory for this character. And then they ended up making a whole other fucking movie. I mean, what is that,
And it's probably the best of the three.
Movie.
Right.
It is hard to say what is the best of the three, but yeah, probably Pearl.
It's the most, I don't know. They're all artistic, but that one just is so, I don't know. It's so out of left field.
It's the ending of Pearl that's just so, this I think elevates it over the other two. That ending, that holding shot of her face is just, it's so unnerving and so perfect. I just don't think there's anything that Ty West and Mia Goth are going to do to top that.
I think you're probably right. The style of this, it's not necessarily like I was worried going into it that it might be style over substance, but the fact that it picks the best style elements to go with the substance of the story. I mean, you've got the killer who's dressed like a giallo killer. The lighting, which is straight out of 80s music videos. The costuming, which is not over the top, and it's really of the period instead of, Take Me Home Tonight or The Wedding Singer. It's not that kind of stuff. And it's not that, everybody thinks of the 80s and they think, oh, it's like poppy fun, Nena, Culture Club, Madonna. It's the seedy underbelly, the kind of the people that you never see until 11 o'clock at night, like Giancarlo Esposito's character. He's always in his office until it's late at night and they're, doing nefarious stuff. And then he's out. Then he comes out at night. It's like the vampire. It could have been a vampire movie because so much of the good stuff takes place at night.
That's good observation. I also love the detail about the Giancarlo Esposito character that where if he's out, he's got that guy with the dogs with him. That guy with the dogs, like he just shows up a couple times, but it's such an effective piece of casting and such an effective visual element that it stands out without taking anything away from anything that's happening in the scene.
And I thought he might be a wrestler or something because just his look, but no, he's not.
Well, just the way Kevin Bacon's character, his climax in the movie is so well shot, so well acted, all around. It's just such a cool ending to his part of the story.
I did not think it was going to go that way either.
No, I thought it was.
I thought, he's got information
and that's what they're waiting for. And no, they just kept going.
We haven't talked about it. This is a horror movie, and there is horror movie levels of violence in this. And we've not talked much about the violence. Obviously, I think the first thing that stands out for some people is the penis stomping scene, which is it's brief, but it is gory. It's effective. And that's that really first good instance where you remember that Maxine is not she is not a damsel in distress.
Right.
Yeah, she's
the darkness.
She has seen some shit, and she's not going to be intimidated by some fucker dressed like Buster Keaton.
That was so funny.
What a great piece. I mean, what a great idea for the costuming, for the casting of that role. It was brilliant.
And what's funny is, so Sean and I saw it together at the Last Picture House last Monday, and they have their Hey Be Quiet is Buster Keaton, like Buster's been flown and thrown and dropped and whatever, don't be like Buster. And then within the first 5 minutes of the movie, there's somebody dressed like Buster Keaton. And I'm like, yes. And then she goes, listen up, Buster. And because people were there, they got it. But I'm not sure that, modern audiences without media literacy would necessarily get that. But I thought it was really funny.
And I'm sure there's things in there that I've missed that I'll catch on a second or third viewing. But yeah, it's so smart, so well done. Just impressive.
The heads that the in the movie were fantastic, and the references to I mean, first of all, you've got her making a cast of her head, which is a great scene, and then the ending on her face again, as they do so brilliantly in these movies, is so fantastic. That's a great through line. And then of course the heads that are in the suitcases near the end. Some great horror movie visuals.
Oh yeah.
This is just such a I hate to call it elevated horror because I don't think it is that. I think it's a really, really good 80s slasher movie with religious overtones and kind of that gritty crime noir kind of feel.
Yeah, for me it's like, I don't know, it's almost like I like to put it off to the side. It's like all the other movies are, here's the standard movies, and here's the movies where the director had complete beginning to end say and control of it. So it's hard for me to put it outside of that. Again, a handful of directors get that freedom, and he got it with these three movies. So it's hard for me to compare it to really anything studio related, because to me it's just off on its own in its own world, where it shows up on our top 10 list at the end of the year. But
yeah, definitely.
But you can't compare it to an Oppenheimer or Killers of the Flower Moon or whatever the hell it was called. It's just its own thing off. You can't, I mean, for me it's even hard to compare to an 80s slasher, because there's just, I don't know, a level of art that's I think elevated is a word I would use, and I don't mean that as a bad thing to everything else. I don't know. I think Ty West is an artist and got the.
It uses the best. He's got a very extensive horror thriller 80s book to choose from, and I think he's chosen all the right elements. That the fact that everybody I knew who's a big horror fan was really kind of pissed when they saw the trailer, because they were like, oh, they're the Night Stalker, she's going to go up against a Night Stalker, and that misdirect
that was great.
Was like, I'm like, oh, thank God they didn't do that. It's something different, and I just that bringing that like actual element into it, and hey, be careful out there, and to her friends, and have them disappear and die. And
isn't that the true story too of like most people who are murdered? They're murdered by someone they know. Like that's like more realistic to have it be somebody who would actually be searching for her and using other murders to get to her, because this is really about her and not about actually killing people. But that, like, the truth of it is, like, people like Richard Ramirez may exist, but the greater danger to any person, women specifically, is somebody they know, someone in their own life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most women who are murdered by, partners. Yeah. So yeah, it's absolutely everybody was afraid of the Night Stalker. I remember that, the panic was real and the hysteria over it was real, but the chances, I mean, he was fairly prolific, but the chances of you meeting somebody like that are slim.
Right.
Hey, Jeff, since you lived in Los Angeles and kind of were around these areas, modern day, how does this compare to what you know of Los Angeles versus the Los Angeles they created in this?
Well, before I ever lived there or visited, I saw these old 80s movies, like our classic that we're going to talk about, that, that's very Hollywood, and those kind of seedy Hollywood, it really kind of stuck to me over the years. And when I lived there, when I would go, when I first would go visit, of course we went to Hollywood Boulevard, and that's not some place that, you go if you live there, but I went just because it kind of tied me to the past of, all the movies I grew up watching and whatever. And it's a completely different place after dark. It's not like this. It's not, everything isn't sleaze like in Maxine or Vice Squad or Fade to Black or anything like that. But it's kind of like the ghosts of Hollywood Boulevard are still there from that time. And I think that they really captured what it was like in the 80s. So
yeah, that's the thing, is it feels very authentic, without resulting in just mere nostalgia, without resulting in just mere, recapping what people might remember. It feels like this is like we're actually watching 1985.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, this is the best movie of 2024. Am I right?
I think so.
I mean, for me, for sure, but I mean, I've seen like 3 movies.
Well, this is my favorite so far. Yeah, and I can't really. I mean, I say that but then again, I saw Problemista and I thought this is the best movie. I don't know if anything's going to top it, and then Maxine comes along.
The only thing that comes close to comparing for it right now is, for me anyway, is I saw the TV Glow.
Yeah. I mean, this is going to sound really stupid. There's so many good horror movies again this year. That I'm going to have a really hard time at the end of the year picking out a top 10 that isn't just all horror.
Yeah. So Bob,
and that includes I saw
ahead.
the TV Glow, etc.
Bob, for you need to see I Saw the TV Glow. You need to see Challengers. Those are those, and then of course, did you see Late Night with the Devil?
Yes,
okay.
I did.
So those are the best movies of the year underneath Maxine.
Trying to think of what else I've seen. Obviously, Strangers sucked. What was the other movie I came on for?
Yeah, that was that.
Well, I came on 2 weeks in a row, though.
Yeah. It was The Strangers and what? I can't remember.
I forgot. Yeah, and I saw Civil War, and that's about it. So, no, I want to see Challengers, and I saw the TV Glow. I wish I would have saw those in the theater, because I do think that matters. I think seeing Maxine in the theater is better than if I would watch it at home. I'm going to love it when I watch it again at home, but I'm glad it matters. I don't know. It matters seeing these things on a big screen, for me at least.
Any final thoughts on Maxine?
Go see it.
I can't wait to see it again. I was actually going to see it again before we talked, but I didn't have the chance. So
that is the thing too. Another thing about X and Pearl and Maxine is that rewatchability factor, because I can watch each of these movies multiple times and still be. I'm betting right now, if I watch Maxine again, there's going to be like 15 things I didn't even see the first time.
Oh, 100%. I would love to do a triple feature. I'm sure that'll never happen.
Last Picture House, if you're listening, let's do this again.
Yeah. You'll at least have 3 patrons.
They did, a double feature of X and Pearl leading up to the release of Maxine. They didn't do all 3 in a day. And come on, guys, get on it.
Yeah, like 3 years from now, do it. And then do it every year.
All right. We just heard us talking with our friend Bob, our producer, our co-host Bob, joined us to talk about Maxine, and that is the best movie of the year so far. Let's talk about other movies that came out this weekend, Jeff. One other movie that came out this weekend, and that is Kinds of Kindness. Yorgos Lanthimos back in theaters already so quickly after Poor Things. You would think, you'd take a little time, man. Relax a little bit. You just had a Best Picture nominee, and he's already back in theaters. And with a movie that is over 3 hours long, that tells 3 different stories, all centering on a man known only as RMF, who serves an odd function. He doesn't speak but he has a purpose, seemingly in each of these stories, as a plot driver in a way. Three different stories that it really was very hard for me to try and figure out exactly what it is that this movie's about. Yorgos Lanthimos has said that this is very much open to interpretation. Like you sort of have to come up with your own meaning if you want to try and understand this movie. And for me, I did kind of finally, Jeff, after like I had to write a spoiler review on this. I had to write about all three of these stories in full for me to try and finally come around to what I think this movie is about. But first of all, the first story, Jesse Plemons plays a guy who his entire life is dictated to him by a character played by Willem Dafoe, who makes all of his decisions for him. But when he fails to follow up on one of these things that Willem Dafoe wants him to do, specifically get into a car accident, get himself sent to the hospital, he fails that. And he says he failed because he didn't want to kill the guy who was driving the car, who was RMF. And when Willem Dafoe tells him the guy's willing to die for this, you just have to do it, he ends up getting fired and kind of losing his mind for a bit because he needs somebody to make his decisions for him. So he ends up going around and then eventually killing RMF so he can get back into Willem Dafoe's good graces. The second story is, again, Jesse Plemons playing a different character. This time he's a police officer whose wife is seemingly lost in a boating accident. She returns, but she's not herself. She's doing things differently than she did when she was there before, and her feet are too big for her shoes now. So he wants to figure out who she is. So he starts this series of loyalty tests that includes her cutting off her finger and serving it to him, and eventually doing something horrific that leads to her death. And then the final story is about a cult led by Willem Dafoe and Hong Chau, where Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons play characters who are searching for some sort of messiah figure who is she's a woman, she's a twin, and her twin sister is dead. And if they can find this woman, they're going to have her try and resurrect the dead. So these are very weird stories featuring the same groups of actors in different settings. The stories seemingly set around people who are looking for other people to tell them what to do, people who are sublimating themselves to others for various different reasons. In the end, Jeff, I came away from this thinking this is maybe about actors and directors, the way an actor sort of vulnerably, surrenders themselves and their decisions and what they do to a director. This is about, Jesse Plemons and Emma Stone working with, a director, Yorgos Lanthimos, who's essentially taken on the role of what Willem Dafoe is throughout this story. At least that's my interpretation of it. Obviously, Yorgos Lanthimos says that again, he's not going to give us his interpretation and tell us what he was thinking when he made it. So what did you think?
Well, at first, I watched the first segment and RMF, what I seemed to be the initials of all the characters. The main, Jesse Plemons, Emma Stone, and Willem Dafoe. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Maybe, we never know maybe in these stories who RMF is. But then the second one that got thrown out and it was Liz. And I'm like, oh, okay. Which I was kind of looking forward to that, to see if that was something that he was going to just try as an experiment. And so I've just listened to a Stephen King book, and it's short stories. And he has this way of not necessarily, he's famous for not knowing how to end something, but he tells these little slice of life stories that are sometimes they're a little sci-fi, sometimes they're a little horror. And that's what I got from this movie, where, it was like a book of short stories. And all of them have the quirky characters and that kind of aesthetic, I guess, that, these are just people that you might see on the street and just kind of be like, God, what the fuck is their problem? and you never kind of know what's going on in somebody's head or in their lives. And that kind of little short story. And that's what I took from it. It was kind of like a Stephen King sci-fi horror short story collection. I didn't think of it as like an overarching, theme necessarily, except for kind of an experiment repertory company, and any of these stories could have been stretched out a little longer and made into, a full like 90-minute movie.
I'm wondering, if this is maybe just 3 ideas that he had, that Yorgos Lanthimos had, that he didn't think he could stretch out to a feature-length film with a full purpose and point, and instead decided to put them into one movie. That way he could get these stories out without having to try and pad them into something more that he maybe didn't think he had.
I think you might be right about that. I mean, just the fact that there's so many little quirks to each story that kind of non sequiturs, that don't necessarily need to be in any of the stories. The only thing that seems to need to be in the story somewhere is RMF for whatever he's doing. And I found like the irony kind of to be the point in each one. Especially in the second one, spoiler alert, when he's convinced that this is not his wife, and so he makes her cut off her thumb, and then he makes her cut out her liver to cook that, and she obviously dies from doing that. But then as soon as she's dead, his actual wife knocks on the door.
Yeah.
Or
she was his actual wife, and this is the whatever clone.
No, see, I took it as she is his wife. His wife was a scientist.
Yeah.
And they were working on something, and they got stranded on a desert island, and she could be a cannibal. She could not, maybe, I don't know. But coming back to him are experiments. And the first one wasn't quite right, and he knew it. And this one, he's convinced is the real one. And I don't know if she's gonna, like, the real one would show up someday if this was made into a 90-minute movie, maybe. But I took it as she might not be his actual wife coming back the second time. It might be a better model, or he had to kill the first one to get the good one. But I don't know. Maybe that Hong Chau's husband died or was going to die, so maybe if he died, the better one would come back. I don't know.
Interesting. That's the second one is certainly the one I think that mostly defies the overarching theme. That said, I do think there is a theme that runs throughout. Mostly even beyond RMF, obviously the main thing. He appears each time, but the main thing that the main through line is people who are sublimating themselves to others, people who are constantly in need of other people to tell them what to do. That certainly is the case with Jesse Plemons in the first story, and Emma Stone as well as Rita in that story, each of them having their lives dictated to them by Raymond, Willem Dafoe's character. And then in the second story, you do have that with Emma Stone's character, doing what Jesse Plemons told her to do, which, serve him her finger, serve him her liver. She's taking what he says and doing it. And then the last one, of course, is also that way with, Willem Dafoe and Hong Chau both entirely in control of those characters, and people, their devotion to them leading to their fate. I think what he's trying to say there is the way, I think, and again, I do think this is about cinema, essentially, to be a little bit pretentious about it. I do think this is about the ways in which a director makes actors vulnerable to them, and actors have to devote themselves to the vision of a director and have that full vulnerability and trust that director knows what they're doing and is giving them the proper direction to deliver the best possible performance. I do believe that is what is happening here, even if he's not going to say that that's what it is. I also think with RMF, I've kind of adopted the idea that RMF is kind of like the screenwriter in this, and that he's kind of this tortured soul who is at the mercy of everybody else, who just kind of has to watch as the thing that he created, which he puts in motion, becomes this other thing, and has to hope that it'll come back around and be something akin to what he wanted it to be, essentially like a resurrection, which is what happens to RMF at the end. He does get resurrected in the end. Did you stay for the mid-credits scene?
I was walking. I sat for a little bit, and then I was getting ready to walk out. Then it came on, and I got to see him eat a sandwich.
Because that's the title, is the RMF eats a sandwich. It delivers on that for whatever reason. But I do think there is something to this. I do think that there is an overarching idea going on here, even as they're unwilling to say what it is.
I had read something afterwards that said that RMF is the character, the same character in all three stories.
Mm-hmm.
So the stories are related through him, but not, none of the other characters obviously are the same character. Right. He's the only one. So
yeah, he dies in the first one when Jesse Plemons repeatedly runs him over, so he can get back in with Willem Dafoe and Margaret Qualley, and then he's on the slab in the third one, where he is resurrected by Margaret Qualley's character. Which, did you think that when you saw the twin sisters, Margaret Qualley playing those two twin sisters, and the first one, she did that thing where she dove into the empty pool, and her sister then woke up to her sister having pulled her out of the pool and essentially saved her life. Did you think that that essentially her sister had brought her back to life?
Oh yeah. That was 100% what I took from that.
And then she, of course, for some reason she thinks she has to kill herself again, so she dives into that pool again, and wow, that was an incredible visual. And again, Yorgos is so great at visual filmmaking. The way he filmed that scene of her jumping into the pool both times was just sort of shocking and terrifying.
Yeah, in my head, I knew she was going to have to, be dead to fulfill the prophecy. But then I kind of set that aside until she actually was just ran to the pool. I was like, oh shit. So
I thought, if she's already resurrected someone, her sister, the sister's already been dead. So why did she need to die again?
Well, that's what so when she said, I've been dead, I was like, oh, okay. So that's the loophole.
Right. But I guess it was more shocking. It was more shocking to do it the way they did it, I guess.
Yeah.
So do you like this movie?
I didn't love it, but I liked it. It was a little, there was something about it that was just a little kind of tedious towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was just the length. I think that this would have been, I've said this before about stuff, a mini series, on a streaming platform or whatever, might have been kind of interesting, where you get, it's 8 episodes or 9 episodes, and each one is, a half an hour of one of them. And it might be kind of interesting to watch them out of order, if it was episode by episode, just to see, I don't know, just if you're going to do an experimental film, which is kind of feels like, that might be a way to do it. I think also, like I said before, it could have actually been a trilogy if each one was, 90 minutes as opposed to 70 minutes. So
something to be said for that.
I liked it, but I didn't love it. And I wanted to love it because that trailer was so good.
Yeah.
Like one of the best trailers I've seen in the last 5 years.
What did you think of the sex in the movie?
After Poor Things, nothing shocks me as far as Emma Stone or,
There's the one in particular that stands out has to be right at the start of the second story, Jesse Plemons as Margaret Qualley and Mamadou Athi over, and they've been friends for a long time, and they're talking about his wife, being missing, and he asks them if they'll watch the video, and they really don't want to, and he makes them do it anyway. Mm-hmm. And it's a video of the four of them having sex.
Yeah, that was the only thing that was kind of shocking to me as far as the sex in the movie.
Well, then you have Joe Alwyn essentially raping Emma Stone in the last story, which was kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Not sure.
I was like, oh,
I got
shit.
what they were getting. I get what they were getting at. They needed to separate her from the cult, and if she had sex with somebody outside the cult, that was going to lead them to calling her quote unquote unpure. But getting there was a weird choice.
Yeah, I really hoped she was just going to leave the cult. Like she was going to find the savior who could bring people back from the dead, and then they were going to say, "Oh, you can come back," and she would be like, "No, I think I'm good. I think I've done my duty." So, I know it would have been kind of cool that if the savior hadn't been killed, she brought her back to the cult, and then Willem Dafoe from the first one would have been the twin brother of the cult leader, and he would have been like, "Excellent." And then he turns, just like to kind of make it more of a circular thing where he turns to Jesse Plemons and says, "Robert, this is what I've been, this is why I've been pushing you so hard. We need people to do the hard things like this woman." And they're all just kind of like, all the different characters are in the same scene or something. That would have been kind of fun.
What if they all were twins? What if that, or in Margaret Qualley's case, I guess it would be triplets. So for Jesse Plemons.
Yeah.
That's the point of the movie. I do like the illusions, though, that I do like, thinking about this movie. I enjoy coming up with theories about this movie. I enjoyed definitely writing about my theory about it being about movies. I do think that's what it is about for me anyway. So yeah, do check out my written review where I go into much more depth about that. Our classic this week is a horror film from 1980 called Fade to Black, written and directed by Vernon Zimmerman and starring Dennis Christopher as a disturbed young man named Eric Binford who is obsessed with movies. Jeff picked this because of it's certainly a cousin to the movie Maxine, which of course is the best movie of 2024 and a movie we just talked about earlier on the show with Bob. This story follows this weird young guy who's just desperately obsessed with movies as he falls in love with a woman who resembles Marilyn Monroe, played by Linda Carriage, and he's kind of observed from a distance by a Dr. Jerry Moriarty, played by Tim Thomerson, who is mostly could be completely cut out of this movie and make absolutely no difference whatsoever. This isn't bad, Jeff. I don't hate this. I do love some of the visual elements of it. I think there's a good idea here. I just think too much of this movie falls on characters knowing things that we never see them learn. That's the kind of thing that kind of gets under my skin a little bit, is when people have information that they don't visually or audibly establish in some way. For instance, there's a scene here where as he's growing more murderous, he's murdered his supposed aunt, perhaps his mom, accidentally. Seemingly accidental murders are kind of his thing. He goes to the movies dressed as Dracula, which is a great visual. Like, it's phenomenal, and the makeup is incredible, and he looks amazing. He goes to this woman's house, Marilyn's house, where her character name is also Marilyn, even as she looks like Marilyn Monroe. And we never know how he learned where she lives. Like, it's Los Angeles. How did he figure out where the fuck she lives? So that he breaks in on her while she's in the shower, and then he leaves, and she never realizes it's him because of the costume, I guess, because she'd met him before, and they had even arranged to go on a date, and that she showed up late for, and he thought that she'd skipped out on completely, which kind of leads him down his more murderous path. So that was good, but then there's the whole Tim Thomerson thing. Like, the cops have all this information, and it's like it reminded me of like one of those old Italian horror movies that gets combined with like American actors who are completely different from a different movie to make a new movie. Because Tim Thomerson, I don't know if he actually does he even share like an actual moment where he and Dennis Christopher are on screen together. I mean, there's scenes where there's scenes where their characters are supposed to be in the same place, but honestly, I'm not sure if they actually shared the same like space in the movie at any time. And I really don't understand the entirety of his character. He's this he comes in and he's treated just miserably by the police. He's not a police officer. He's a psychiatrist, maybe, or something like that. It's very unclear.
Psychiatrist.
It's very unclear, and how he comes to be part of this case is just completely fudged entirely. So there's a lot that's wrong with this movie, but again, I like the idea, and I like what Dennis Christopher is doing with the performance.
Yeah, he's the best part of the movie. And Marilyn, that character is really endearing. And I don't think that she was necessarily meant to be. Honestly. Just because as the object of his affection, all she really is the object.
Yeah.
And the way Linda Carriage plays her has a surprising amount of heart.
Yeah.
So
yeah, she I felt genuine that she gave this very weird, very awkward guy a chance, and that she didn't mean to stand him up. She wasn't. I think in any other horror movie, especially like a more modern horror movie, they would make it very plain that she was being that she was dismissing him, that she was intentionally skipping out on the date. It made her more likable. That she was like, oh my gosh, I'm late. I was supposed to meet this guy, and she desperately goes and tries to meet him, but she's obviously way too late.
Yeah, and you get the feeling just by his reaction that this has happened to him several times. It seems like every time he's tried to, date a girl, she does this to him and kind of blows him off. So,
and it's not a complete meltdown either, because he doesn't set out to kill seemingly anybody aside from maybe Mickey Rourke. I think he intended to kill Mickey Rourke for sure, because he's a guy who he works with who is bullying him and doesn't treat him very kindly. And so he definitely sets out to kill that guy, but killing his mom, aunt, that seemingly kind of came up, like he seemingly had the idea to do it, but it wasn't him that necessarily did it. It did turn out to be an accident, though he didn't try to help her either.
Yeah, I think that some of the scenes like that scene are only built to reflect a movie that they could get the rights to. I think the fact that it mirrors that scene in the movie that he's watching I don't think it's necessarily, it's intentional, but I think it's, I can't think of the word for it, but that's one of the reasons that it played out like that, was because they could do that.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why they have her in a wheelchair. Even I think that's the whole purpose. And it is a real movie that he's watching, from a real 1930s noir thriller that he's watching. And I don't have the title of it. I just read it. And I can't think of it right now. But that was a real movie, and he does that throughout, where he's mimicking real movie characters. Hopalong Cassidy. He plays Dracula, obviously, as I mentioned. He's the Mummy as well. He's using these characters that did lead to some trouble for this movie. They did get sued. The movie did get sued. They couldn't actually use footage from Dracula. They wanted him dressed as Dracula at Dracula. They couldn't get it. They had to settle for a couple times. They had to settle for some brief shots of the Hammer horror film version of Dracula, which is not who he's dressed as. He's not dressed as Christopher Lee.
Yeah, he's definitely not Christopher Lee.
The makeup is so much cooler when it comes to making a black and white version of the original 30s Dracula. That's such a cool visual, and the makeup people definitely deserve a shout out. The makeup and costume people deserve big shout outs for what they did in this movie.
Oh yeah. I think the fact that the famous like makeup shot is half face Dracula and half Dennis Christopher's face. I think that's the most famous one that people know. But then when he's in full Dracula makeup, it's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Just all black and white, and looks like he's stepping right off of the screen.
Yeah, that's it's pretty incredible looking. He kills a sex worker dressed as Dracula. After he home invades Maryland, of course, he goes out and he finds this sex worker who had kind of blown him off earlier and made fun of him a little bit, and chases her down and then gets her killed. Doesn't necessarily kill her, but he gets her killed. Drinks her blood because he's Dracula, so why not? But the movie
That's what he's supposed to do.
The movie is a bit wishy-washy at times about his villainy, about whether or not he's setting out to kill people, or if we're just going to continue to make it seem like he's not entirely responsible for what he's doing. That to me, I think they should have shit or get off the pot, make him a villain or not. Like they do eventually. Like when he does kill him, when he kills a movie producer who stole an idea that he had for a movie, he's very much the murderer in that sense.
Yeah, I think you kind of see that snap with that character, with the movie producer. It's kind of like the movie wants to have its cake and eat it too when it comes to him being the villain. And I think that it kind of rides that just right up until that moment. And then it's, then he's definitely the villain of the piece. So.
So this movie, fell into obscurity for a very long time. What is the reputation of this film?
Visually, I think it's one of those that, because of the movie makeups, especially the Dracula and the half Dracula, I think it's something that we all saw as Gen Xers in the movie theater or in the video store. You saw that him eating the popcorn and drinking the pop, and half his face and half the Dracula face, and that left a really indelible impression on a lot of us of a certain age. A friend of mine who makes enamel pins, that was one of the first ones I ever saw that she made.
Yeah,
and I think that, like a lot of us who grew up in video stores and Blockbuster and that kind of thing with a big horror section, that's the legacy of it, is seeing that cover. And Vinegar Syndrome put out a Blu-ray a couple of years ago that I finally opened to watch for this, because I've seen it was streaming and everything, and I've watched it on streaming, but it was one of those ones I just really wanted for my collection, because I remembered it being, kind of so to speak, a cut above your general slashers, and had an actual, a little more in-depth story. And I think that's the legacy, is people who catch it on Shudder or Prime or wherever it's streaming, they kind of connect with it in a different way now that movies are so meta. And especially the horror genre after Scream, everyone wanted to be meta, and this was very kind of meta for its day.
Yeah,
even though we didn't have immediate access to every movie ever made, aside from the ones that they take down from streaming. We didn't have that kind of access, but now we do. And I think that this was kind of the precursor to that.
Does it surprise you that this is the only movie that Vernon Zimmerman ever directed?
Yeah, honestly, because of the fact that it's well made. This was 1980. This was not, where it had fallen out of favor, but he got to film in and on now it's TCL, but Grauman's Chinese Theater, and that was a big deal.
Oh yeah.
And it's still, to this day, that theater is historic, and the fact that he's filming on top of it and inside of it is just,
it's very rare. You look around at movies, you don't see many movies that are shot in that space.
Yeah. So I think it deserves a little more love than I think it gets. And like Tourist Trap, I think it should be a little more solidified in the horror genre, the canon of classic 80s horror movies.
We're watching this, and he just passed away. Vernon Zimmerman passed away back in October of last year.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So, if you're only going to make one movie and you only get the chance to make one movie, he threw everything at it.
Yeah.
I wish the script were a little bit better.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. I do want to say though, that I think the cast was, you got Mickey Rourke, before he was Mickey Rourke.
Yeah.
But everybody, I think was pretty well cast. The police officers, I'm not sure if you know this, but the female police officer, Ashenbull, I think was her name in the movie, Gwen Guilford, was pregnant at the time. And do you know who she was pregnant with?
Chris Pine.
Chris Pine, yeah.
Yeah, Chris Pine's mom is in this movie. He's in the movie too, because she was pregnant at the time. So technically, this is a film credit for him. If you're a Republican, he should be in the cast list.
Yep. Oh Lord.
Get that baby a SAG card.
But Linda Carriage, as Marilyn, who looks like late stage Marilyn Monroe,
also just disappeared. If you can believe it, she's so good in this and so interesting. And then she's like, apparently she lives in the mountains in Australia now and just does not even approach acting.
Yeah, she made, between 1978 and 1988, she made a few movies and nothing, really of note, except maybe Alien from LA, that has a kind of underground reputation. But yeah, Fade to Black is her, I would say, probably her biggest credit, which, not a lot of people have heard about it. So
I gotta ask though, why is there an extended scene of Tim Thomerson playing the harmonica? Why did that
my
happen?
God, I laughed so fucking hard at that. I'm like, okay, is somebody going to come in and interrupt him? Why is he still going?
Why he's doing bumps with coke and just blasting a harmonica for like 3 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Come on. Oh.
Meanwhile, he's never met the main character that he's supposed to be the expert about. He just suddenly becomes the expert in the main character. At a certain point of the movie, he's just assigned that because I guess they remembered, oh, hey, we cast Tim Thomerson in this movie, didn't we? I guess we should make him the expert in our main character. That's why he's here, right? Suddenly just the name of the main character, Eric Binford, is on a chalkboard in his office suddenly, and now he's like this guy. Yeah, we're looking for this guy or two other people that you haven't met and aren't really part of the movie. that Tim Thomerson's the whole thing with Tim Thomerson's character and Gwen Guilford's characters, they're just needless. They were not well integrated into the plot. And they should have been, because like,
Mhm.
first of all, like the movie seems to dislike like everything about what Tim Thomerson is doing. Like he wants to be sympathetic to this guy who he has zero information about. He has never met,
Yeah.
but he wants to say that the system has failed this young man for reasons that he's making up in his head. He's got the angry police captain who's yelling at him and telling him he's a moron and he needs to stay out of this and he's not a cop. And I'm kind of sitting there going, as much as that guy's an asshole, I'm like, he's right. Like, he's not wrong. You're not a cop and you have no role to play here. You've not even met the main character.
And you got to wonder, like, did he had a ton of TV credits before this, and he was in a couple movies.
Mm-hmm.
I think the most recent one before this was Carney with Jodie Foster. But did they just like write around him, like his personality? Because that's kind of what it seems like, especially with the harmonica stuff. It's like, oh, can I put in can I do some harmonica in it? And the director's like, oh, whatever, just fucking do it. I don't care.
I think he's making a character study of Dennis Christopher's character, and like there's a movie studio executive going, hey, we've got if you put Tim Thomerson in, I'll give you the money to make the movie. We need a name, and say what you will, Tim Thomerson in 1980, he's been in a bunch of TV shows and movies. He's got hundreds of credits by this time. People know his name a little bit. You're talking about a low budget horror movie where you need a face that people might recognize. Not saying he's box office or anything, but he's the biggest star in the cast, maybe. I mean, Dennis Christopher. Well, no, that's not
Dennis
true.
Christopher
Dennis Christopher was
Breaking
just in Breaking Away, I guess. But I just think they tagged Tim Thomerson onto this for whatever reason, and then just kind of wrote scenes that put him into the movie.
Yeah. I think it's just like maybe he needed his his SAG card insurance or something, and Vernon Zimmerman was just like, okay, like Angela Lansbury used to do for Madeline Rue and some of the older Hollywood stars. Maybe he just was like, you know what, have at it, just come in and play your harmonica and we'll go from there.
He feels like a studio note to me. He feels like here's Tim Thomerson, you need to put him in the movie and add in a cop element of this. So it breaks up the story of your killer, because you need somebody who is going to be hunting him, I think. And I think they add even the name, Moriarty, which is I guess
Sherlock Holmes,
yeah,
nemesis.
It's vaguely related. It's,
yeah,
it's something that you could throw in there for something.
If that's the reason they named him Moriarty, that means that he's the villain. And Dennis Christopher is Sherlock Holmes, which clearly he is not.
I'm just saying that he feels like a studio note. That's why he's there.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of.
Anything further on Fade to Black?
I think I want people to give it a chance if they're looking for something to watch late at night, or let's go back and revisit the 80s. Well, let's revisit that. So.
All right. Well, Jeff, do you want to share any thoughts on Forrest Gump? We're doing that for the 94 podcast. That'll drop on Thursday. Anything on Forrest Gump from you?
Just that I don't recommend it. I watched it. I thought, oh, that's so cool that they did all that. And I was just like, oh, Jesus, come on. I watched it again years later and just was not remotely a fan.
Yeah, I fucking hate it.
I know.
I fucking hate it a lot. It's just the rudimentary filmmaking of it, the way that it's so appealing. It's just it's a movie that is built to appeal to people who don't watch movies.
Well, I just thought it was nostalgia porn.
There's that. Yeah, that's an element of it, but truly, like it's just spoon feeding you every dramatic development. I mean, he goes running and they play Running on Empty. He goes to Vietnam, they play Fortunate Son. she's going to San Francisco. So are you going to San Francisco plays on the soundtrack? Like, Jesus Christ, Robert Zemeckis, do you just do you just think your audience is a bunch of fucking morons? Like, we need to have everything just spoon fed to us constantly. And yeah, I mean, if you want to be cynical about it, the people who like this movie are not, I think the people who like Forrest Gump are people who don't go to the movies. They're not really movie fans. They're people who just they like to have a thing flashing on the screen in front of them that they're not paying attention to.
Yeah, they're going to see this movie because it's got John F. Kennedy in it. They're going to see it because it's that kind of thing. So yeah, not because it's a story. It's
check that out on Thursday. It'll drop on the feed in slightly edited form for reasons. All right. Next week, we've got Fly Me to the Moon with Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson. And the movie that we've been looking forward to for a very long time, ticking a couple of boxes for things we love, both Nicolas Cage and horror. Long Legs will be in theaters this weekend. So really, really looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's one of those ones that I've been... It's one of my most anticipated ones since I saw the first trailer, because the trailer doesn't tell you anything.
And I've avoided reading anything beyond the trailers that they've released. So
I literally just looked at the description on IMDb to see if we could come up with a classic based on that.
Yeah.
So,
and we're watching Manhunter because of this.
That's Michael Manhunter.
Michael Mann, the most overrated director working today. Sorry, what did I just say? I didn't say anything. I said nothing. Flick chart. What do you say? Just a couple minutes of flick chart?
Well, yeah, let's do a couple minutes of flick chart.
Jury Duty with Pauly Shore or Mission Impossible Fallout?
Maxine. Mission Impossible, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't care about Tom Cruise. So
Videodrome or Nine, starring Nicole Kidman and a whole bunch of other people. Rob Marshall directed it. Big musical.
As much as I hate and despise James Wood, I'm going with Videodrome.
Yeah, Videodrome is undeniable. Cronenberg's amazing. But it sucks that James Woods is in it.
Yeah. I wish it had been Peter Weller.
Yeah. The Stepford Wives 2004 remake or I Am Sam?
Oh, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, why do you do this to me? Stepford Wives. I Am Sam is one of the most offensive movies I've ever seen.
Oh, if there's one movie that inspired, I know everybody points to Forrest Gump, but if there's truly a movie that inspired that line from Tropic Thunder, never go full,
yeah,
it's I Am Sam. It's for sure that movie inspired that. Sean Penn just totally being as offensive as he possibly can be.
That's not one of those movies where where people say, you know what, there are plenty of actors who have, mental disabilities that we can cast. Mm-hmm. That's the movie you just say, no, we do not make this movie.
Yeah, don't do it.
Just don't.
Heist with Gene Hackman or The Contender with Jeff Bridges and Joan Allen?
I really love The Contender. I'm going to pick that.
Yeah, I'll go with you. I love Heist, though. What David Mamet directed, it's really, really good.
That's a good movie. I watched... The Contender was one of the first DVDs I ever got. I was working at Borders and somebody had returned it and they couldn't return it to the manufacturer or something. I don't know. There was something wrong. They said there was something wrong with it and they returned it and got a new one and I ended up with it and I just watched that a lot.
I love Jeff Bridges and his shark meat sandwich and and Chris was it oh god, who is it? There's a scene with him and another actor that's just really good. Christian Slater.
Yeah.
Where he just makes him look like a complete jackass. Good stuff. Good stuff. The Legend of Bagger Vance or Sorry to Bother You?
Sorry to Bother You, 100%.
Yeah. All right. The Man from Uncle or Shoot 'Em Up?
Shoot 'em up. Shoot 'em up.
Yeah. Clive Owen as Bugs Bunny. Shampoo, 1975, or The Limey, starring Terrence Stamp?
Shampoo.
The Limey for me. I hate Shampoo. I think it's just incredibly, incredibly boring. Let's see, we'll flip the coin here, and Limey wins. All right. What's next? No, Flick Chart. Take your time. We're only recording a podcast. It's fine. Fright Night, 1985, or a movie nobody's ever heard of. Fright Night or The Wolverine, 2013.
Fright Night.
Yeah, Fright Night. The Wolverine was pretty bad. All Dogs Go to Heaven or The Dark Knight?
Oh my God. All dogs go to I'm just kidding. Obviously, it's The Dark Knight.
Last Action Hero or Pacific Heights?
Pacific Heights.
Yeah, I've not seen it in a while, but I did see Last Action Hero recently, and it was even more disappointing the second time.
Yeah, I watched it for the first time a couple of years ago, and I was like, why did they make this? I mean, I know why they made it, but
can we get movies that we've actually seen here, please? Here we go. Don John or Role Models?
Oh, Role Models is one of my favorite comedies. That movie made me laugh so hard I woke up my roommate.
Yeah,
not that I didn't love. I love Don John. I thought that was really good. But it's not one I would watch again. It's definitely I would watch Role Models.
Terminal Velocity with Charlie Sheen or Red Dragon?
Ooh. Oh, God. The remake of what we're doing next week. Wow. They're listening to us. Spoiler alert for our classic next week, but I really liked both versions of Red Dragon, so
I did not like Red Dragon at all. Up against Terminal Velocity.
Oh, I'm picking Terminal Velocity. I'm just saying, it's not a contest. It's just I happen to like both of them for different reasons. So.
All right. In Cold Blood, 1967 or Reno 911 Miami?
Oh my God. In Cold Blood. What the fuck?
Yeah. Oh, for fuck's sake. The Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special is just a TV show. It's not a movie. Let's see here. Come on, give me something to work with. That is not anything to work with either. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory 2005 or Pineapple Express?
Pineapple Express.
Yeah. Pineapple Express is pretty funny.
Yeah, it is.
I'm
not a stoner and I actually like that.
School Ties or Independence Day?
School Ties is the better movie, but I've only ever watched it once.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would return to it. Whereas Independence Day, I watch at least part of it every year.
Yeah, it's really watchable.
I'm going to say Independence Day.
Yeah,
it has Goldblum in it. So,
all right, and let's see, last one here. We're going to wrap it up right here, bring it to a close. The Equalizer 2014 or The Departed?
Oh my God, The Departed. Come on.
I wish we had a better one to go out on, but I mean, that's just what we got. That's what we got.
Yeah. Maybe
All right.
next time we'll get a decent one.
Jeff, next week.
Sounds good.